Today we're in the Vernon Central community, bringing you the dedication of the new 28th Street apartments, which are inside of the historic 28th Street YMCA. Located at 28th and Paloma, these new apartments will serve the underserved in a building designed by iconic architect Paul Revere Williams. Much of what you'll hear and see today will bridge this building's past, its present, and veer into the future, with the common thread being Paul Williams himself. You'll also see what can be accomplished when government teams up with the private and non-profit sectors to make something happen. Stay tuned for all of this and more on Newswire LA right after this. The building you're looking at was known as the 28th Street YMCA and was as colorful as the Central Avenue community that surrounded it. The building you are looking at was erected on this site in 1926 at a cost of $200,000, which was mostly raised by blacks living and working in this community. History might remember this structure as a symbol of segregated Los Angeles, since it was the only YMCA facility in the area where black boys and men could come and get a hot meal and a room when they were down on their luck. This building would remain one of the centerpieces of this community throughout the segregation years in Los Angeles. When segregation ended, a major shift in this community took place, which saw the area's black population branching into areas that were once forbidden by restrictive housing covenants. Blacks were moving into areas like Ladera Heights, View Park, and Baldwin Hills. Left behind was the Central Avenue community, which overall began a measured downward spiral into decay. That decay started as a small spot in this building and nearly claimed it. You'll hear from the CRA's Jenny Scanlon later that the building's overall state sank so low that it was barely habitable. Additionally, the YMCA was opting to leave the neighborhood and place this property up for sale. It's about this time that the whole Vernon Central community movement you're going to hear about gained steam. In a bold move, government, nonprofits, and the private sector joined forces to rehabilitate and reuse buildings just like this one for all new purposes and all new missions. In the case of the 28th Street Y, as it was known, its new mission is not much different than its old one, but it's updated to fit 21st century needs and concerns. Once, it was young black men who needed a meal and a bed who came here. Today, this building will be a haven for the homeless, the mentally ill, foster children who've turned out of the system, and citizens we know today as the working poor. This plan might leave you pensive that all of these elements together might be like oil and water, but we'll leave it to the folks here at the dedication to explain what they've planned. I suspect that'll change your mind after hearing what they have to say. Ironically, tying the stories from yesterday, today, and tomorrow is a name you'll hear popping up from almost everyone speaking today: Paul Revere Williams. Councilwoman Jan Perry, as you'll see, will state that Williams is as relevant today as he was when he designed this building. Also, summarizing Perry again, Williams is wrapped around every soul who's turned out to see the rededication of this great lady. With that introduction behind us, let's go into the 28th Street apartments and take our place in the renovated gymnasium, where we will settle in and hear from the forces behind this project. Taking the podium is the day's first speaker, James Bonner. Bonner is the executive director of Clifford Beers Housing, which was the lead developer and is the property owner. Let's go to Jim Bonner.
This is the second opening that we've had in as many weeks. Clifford Beers Housing is beginning to see itself as the Johnny Appleseed of supportive housing. That is, we go about the city building new buildings or rehabilitating old ones to create affordable housing for low-income people, some of whom are living with mental illness. We demonstrate through our work that people living with mental illness can achieve the recovery that allows them to thrive in their communities, to join into community life. The 28th Street Apartments and Community Center are Clifford Beers Housing's sixth completed supportive housing project.
Up next is a familiar face at Newswire LA. That's Mark Wilson, who is the executive director of the Coalition for Responsible Community Development, the nonprofit on this project. The last time we saw Mark, he was talking to us about their project Dunbar Village, which is farther south on Central at 42nd Street. Let's go to Mark Wilson of CRCD.
Today is not just the opening of permanent affordable housing with extensive services, but also, thanks to the City of Los Angeles, the Coalition for Responsible Community Development was selected to be part of the Youth Source Center. So for the first time, I believe, ever, we're bringing the City of Los Angeles Youth Source Center that will take place here at the YMCA, at the historic YMCA, our 28th Street residency. Now, many people may not know what a Youth Source Center is, but in a nutshell, it's going to provide young people in this neighborhood with opportunities towards employment, education, and placement. And that's huge in this area with a high youth unemployment rate. You passed the center as you walked in. You're probably wondering what all these computers and things are. That's where young people will come from this neighborhood, receive services. There'll be staff here to provide them with services, and it's here in the Vernon Central community. So we're grateful to our partners at the Community Development Department. Greg Irish or either Robert Zines will be speaking later to talk more in detail about that, but we're so excited about that opportunity that will benefit hundreds of young people.
We've shown you various images of this revitalized building and will continue to do so as various speakers take the stage. However, let's take a moment to spotlight some of the resources in the building. What you're looking at is what used to be the Y's original swimming pool area. Because the repurposing of this building did not include use of a pool, the floor space was reallocated for additional work areas, especially for the outreach programs that will be based here. There's a small kitchen nook for employees and others to use for heating food or pouring coffee. There's also additional computer terminals, study and relaxation areas, and even what appears to be a large eating area with an industrial stove for cooking. Again, watch for more images during this broadcast.
On behalf of County Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, I would like, first of all, to thank everyone who's participated in creating this building, to Jim and Mark and all of their partners. This has been a classic example of cooperation. The city was involved, the Community Redevelopment Agency, our Community Development Commission, Bobette Glover, the county through its mental health support programs, my colleague Kathleen Austria, the city's housing functions under Mercedes, community development under Richard Benbow. This is how government should work. The program here is of great significance. Permanent supportive housing, housing with services, actually works. It's making a real dent, constant steps forward in our commitment to end and prevent homelessness in Los Angeles County. This is an example of a step in that direction. It's also an example of the adaptive reuse of an historic building. Old buildings do have new life. We started at Jan with City Hall a few years ago, and now the county's doing the Hall of Justice, and that momentum is continuing with other opportunities to recapture our heritage through the reuse of existing buildings. But most of all, what I wanted to say today is that the spirit of redevelopment is not dead.
I think we really do need to find a way to keep this momentum that we've built here in Los Angeles going. And the momentum was created by two factors. One of the factors is leadership. I think the leadership of community agencies like Clifford Beard's, but also political leadership, such as that exhibited by our Board of Supervisors, and Supervisor Mark Ridley Thomas, the new chair of the Board of Supervisors, will give us the impetus to end homelessness in Los Angeles County. Leadership and partnership, that's what we need. Our product here is homes and is shelter, but the purpose for that is really to create community. Because if there's one thing that we have found in the American society is that when we exclude people, we harm them. And our idea is that we need to create communities that are inclusive, that include people with mental illness, that include people with disabilities, that include people from all income levels and from all ethnic groups. When we create a real community, everyone is healthier. We receive the gifts from all of the segments of our society, and everyone flourishes. So I want to thank the leadership that has led this to be able to happen today, and all of the many partners, because what you have done is not just created some wonderful places for people to be sheltered. You've created an opportunity for us to create a true and real and inclusive community. Thank you very much.
According to the Paul R. Williams Project, Paul Revere Williams was born in Los Angeles on February 18, 1894. At the turn of the 20th century, Los Angeles was a vibrant, multi-ethnic environment. In high school, he experienced the first hint of racism when a teacher advised him against pursuing a career in architecture. That was because she believed he would have difficulty attracting clients in the majority white community, and she believed that the black community could not provide enough work to sustain him. Williams did not give up on his goal, however. Confident in his strengths, he simultaneously pursued architectural education and professional experience with Los Angeles' leading firms, never settling for less than perfection in his work and dignity in his relationships with clients and colleagues. Earning academic accolades, competition prizes, and the respect of his employers, Williams was able to open his own practice in 1922. He became the first African-American member of the American Institute of Architects in 1923. His great success was in designing homes for wealthy clients in the elite hillside subdivisions like Bel Air, Brentwood, and Beverly Hills. Sought by the entertainment industry leaders, Williams became known as the architect to the Hollywood stars. In the course of his 5-decade career, Williams designed approximately 3,000 buildings, served on many municipal, state, and federal commissions, was active in political and social organizations. In 1957, he was the first African American elected to a Fellow of the American Institute of Architects. Paul R. Williams retired from his practice in 1973 and died in 1980 at the age of 85. Taking the podium next is Mercedes Marquez, who is the Deputy Mayor of Housing for the City of Los Angeles. During Ms. Marquez's speech, we're going to show you some actual images of the 28th Street apartments. We're pretty sure you'll be amazed at the living quarters that have been designed for those who are going to live here.
On behalf of Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, I want to congratulate you all that folks are going to now enjoy are 48 of over 2,300 units that have been financed to end homelessness in the last 6 years. And what we learned from talking to folks who were coming into permanent supportive housing is that they had their own bathroom. That was the difference to them between whether they were visiting or it was actually their home. So to make the architectural change, which cost more and that we committed to do, was very, very important. And when I was getting lots of pushback, it was actually Jan Perry who actually, in the Housing Committee, said, no, the conversation's over. This is going to be the design. We're going to go forward. And since that time, Los Angeles, over and over again, has won design awards for making that huge change in what it is that we would fund. Finally, I just want to say to you that I grew up in the YWCA. And I learned as a very young woman, right, the history that both the YM and the YW had, being a bridge to the migration both north and west for African Americans. One of my mentors was Dorothy Height when I was a very young woman. Absolutely. You know, she was the first African American national executive director of the YWCA of the USA. So this is what justice looks like. And this is what hope was for thousands of folks. I was in Baton Rouge over the weekend speaking at the Louisiana Housing Association on 5 years of work. And I know that there are many African Americans in LA who have their roots from Louisiana who came here, and that was the bridge there. So when we started talking about the YMCA here on 28th Street, we understood, and I'm so proud of the Housing Department for doing everything that they could possibly do to make this happen and to continue this as a house of justice. So thank you so much. Congratulations.
Los Angeles Community Redevelopment Administrator Jenny Scanlon gives us a first-hand account of what she and staffers of the CRA encountered when they entered the building for the first time a few years prior to its restoration.
I want to talk about, just briefly, since so much has been covered already, about my experience here with this specific facility. When I first got to the agency in 2004, we spent a lot of time in the neighborhood looking around at the assets, at what was here, at what we could build on, and what was important to that community and this community. And we kept driving by this building and thinking, is it deserted? Is it, what is going on here? Is this building functioning? Is it actually a YMCA? And we talked to the council office, and of course, if you know the councilwoman and you know her staff, you know that they are like a dog with a bone. And the minute I mentioned this building, Kathy Godfrey, her chief of staff, just said, we have been trying to do something with this building for years, and it is horrendous. And yes, it actually is a functioning YMCA. I said, this is a functioning YMCA. I need a tour. So we came down and we got a tour of this facility, and I have to say it was eye-opening. The only two functioning rooms, and it's, I think, generous to say that they were functioning, were the two rooms up front. And the only people here, there were about 10 women, wonderful women, who were here. There was, maybe 5 or 6 pieces of exercise equipment, and these women were devoted. They were from the neighborhood, and every day they came here and they got together and they did their exercise and they supported each other, and that was beautiful. And but the rest of the facility was just a tatters. This room was not being used. It couldn't be used. If you went upstairs, there were cockroaches everywhere. The halls were a mess. The rooms were a mess. It was disgusting. And and I'm a member of the YMCA. And I couldn't believe that the Y was letting this facility sit the way it was and trying to serve this community with such a poor facility. And so we left here, and you could either leave